Hit the like button, share your thoughts, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. The Federation envoy ship, Odyssey's beacon, hummed as it descended into the iridescent atmosphere of Gibraltar Prime, a planet famed for its towering crystal spires and home to the Tralaxian Empire. It was an unprecedented diplomatic mission. The first human ambassador invited to Gibraltar, a world where humans were dismissed as primitive, weak, and altogether insignificant. Ambassador Nathaniel Kane adjusted his formal Federation uniform in the ship's docking bay. Tall, lean, and sharp-eyed, Nathaniel had been selected for his composure and unshakable wit, qualities he would sorely need to endure the challenges ahead. "Remember, you're representing all of humanity," said Medea, the ship's AI assistant, through Nathaniel's earpiece. "The Tralaxians are notoriously haughty. Their society values cunning, strength, and status above all else. Try not to punch anyone." Yet, Nathaniel smirked. "Noted. Let's keep the punching to a diplomatic plan B." The docking ramp lowered, revealing the royal reception chamber. It was a dazzling hall carved from glowing quartz and adorned with hovering orbs of light. Standing at the far end were the three sisters of Tralaxian royalty, flanked by dozens of guards and courtiers. The eldest, Princess Lyra Kael, stood with her chin raised and a predatory gleam in her golden eyes. Her lithe frame was coiled with serpentine grace, and her voice carried a mocking sweetness. "So this is humanity's chosen representative," she said, her words dripping with derision. "A frail little thing, isn't he?" The second sister, Princess Rinval, gave a bark of laughter. She was shorter but broader, her muscular frame cloaked in intricate armor. "I've seen Graltorian livestock more intimidating than him." "Are you sure this isn't a jest, Lyra?" The youngest, Princess Zellery, giggled softly behind a fan made of luminescent scales. She was petite and bird-like, her silver hair cascading in shimmering waves. "He's almost cute, like a hatchling fumbling out of its egg." Nathaniel's smile didn't falter. He inclined his head politely. "Ambassador Nathaniel Kane of Earth, at your service. I see the Tralaxian reputation for warmth precedes you." Lyra's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second before she recovered. The courtiers murmured at Nathaniel's audacity. A mere human challenging the sharp tongues of Tralaxian royalty? It was a bold move. Before the exchange could escalate, the booming voice of King Varric, the sisters' father, interrupted. He entered the chamber, towering above all present, his crystalline crown refracting 1,000 colors. "Enough," he commanded, his tone brooking no argument. "Let us not disgrace the sanctity of diplomacy with petty squabbling." The sisters fell silent, though their eyes still glittered with amusement. The king's gaze fixed on Nathaniel. "Ambassador, you have been summoned here for a reason. The Tralaxian Empire stands at a crossroads, and alliances must be forged. But first, we must determine if your species is worthy of such an honor." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "I thought I was here to negotiate trade agreements, not participate in a job interview." A ripple of laughter swept through the courtiers, quickly stifled under the king's stern glare. "You misunderstand," Varric said. "Tralaxian tradition dictates that all potential allies face a series of trials to prove their mettle. You will compete in 3 challenges, one designed by each of my daughters. If you succeed, humanity will be granted an alliance. If you fail—" The king didn't finish his sentence, but the weight of unspoken consequences hung heavy in the air. Nathaniel inclined his head, feigning confidence he wasn't entirely sure he felt. "I accept your challenge. May I ask what these trials entail?" Lyra stepped forward, a predatory smile curling her lips. "Patience, little human. The first trial begins tomorrow. For tonight, enjoy our hospitality, while it lasts." As Nathaniel was escorted to his quarters, Medea chimed in again. "Well, that went better than expected. You only got mildly insulted instead of skewered." "Small victories," Nathaniel muttered. He gazed out of the crystalline windows of his chamber at the alien city sprawling below, its lights shimmering like a living organism. Tomorrow he would face whatever the Tralaxians had planned. For humanity's sake and his own pride, He couldn't afford to fail. But as he lay awake that night, listening to the alien hum of Gralter's night winds, he couldn't shake the feeling that the sisters weren't just mocking him. They were testing him in ways far beyond the confines of the trials. The next morning, Nathaniel stood in the gleaming quartz arena at the heart of Gralter Prime's royal palace. Above him, thousands of Tralaxian citizens filled the crystalline terraces, their voices echoing in a symphony of whispers and occasional laughter. The three princesses sat in thrones carved from refractive crystal, their expressions ranging from amused to disdainful. King Varric rose from his central throne, his voice booming across the arena. Today, the first trial begins. Princess Lyra Kael has devised this challenge to test the wit and intellect of humanity's envoy. Let it be known, failure will bring great shame upon his species, and success. Well, success is yet to be determined. Lyra stepped forward, her golden eyes gleaming with mischief. Ambassador Kane, she began, her voice carrying an almost seductive lilt. I chose wit for your first trial because I suspect it's the only weapon you possess. But even that might be inadequate here. Nathaniel smirked. I appreciate your confidence, princess. Shall we begin? Her lips curved in a sly smile. With a gesture, a holographic display materialized in the air, projecting what looked like an enormous, three-dimensional puzzle. The structure twisted and turned, its translucent shapes shifting in a hypnotic rhythm. This, Lyra explained, is the Triskelion conundrum, a puzzle that has stumped some of the brightest minds in the galaxy. You must solve it before the crystal sand in that hourglass runs out. She pointed to a massive hourglass nearby, its glittering sand already beginning to flow. Nathaniel studied the hologram. The Triskelion conundrum consisted of 3 interconnected rings, each adorned with hundreds of glowing nodes that pulsed with light. The objective, he quickly deduced, was to align all 3 rings so that their nodes synchronized into a single, harmonious pattern. The courtiers chuckled among themselves, clearly expecting the human to fail spectacularly. Even Lyra looked as though she was simply waiting for him to flounder. Nathaniel, however, approached the puzzle with quiet determination. Fascinating, he muttered, tilting his head to study the shifting lights. Medea, any thoughts? The AI's voice crackled softly in his earpiece. It's a spatial logic puzzle. The trick is recognizing the hidden symmetry. Rotate the outer ring 20 degrees clockwise to start. Nathaniel reached out and manipulated the hologram with a deftness that surprised even the courtiers. The outer ring clicked into place with a satisfying chime, causing the nodes on the inner rings to pulse more brightly. Lyra arched an eyebrow. A lucky start, she said. Nathaniel glanced at her, his expression unbothered. Luck doesn't solve puzzles, princess. Let's see where this goes. He continued working, his hands moving with increasing confidence. Medea provided occasional insights, but it was clear. Nathaniel's intuition played a major role. He noticed patterns in the lights, understood the balance required to align the rings, and adapted quickly when a wrong move disrupted his progress. The crowd's amusement gradually shifted to intrigue. Lyra, however, began to frown. She leaned forward, watching as Nathaniel made another adjustment that brought the rings tantalizingly close to synchronization. Impressive, she murmured under her breath. With mere moments left in the hourglass, Nathaniel rotated the final ring into place. The puzzle emitted a resonant hum as the nodes aligned perfectly, forming a radiant pattern that bathed the arena in golden light. The crowd erupted into stunned silence, broken only by a few murmurs of disbelief. Nathaniel stepped back, brushing his hands together as if dusting them off. Well, that was fun, he said casually, looking up at Lyra. What's next? The eldest princess stared at him, her confident smirk replaced by a tight-lipped expression. For a moment, it seemed as though she might lash out, but then she surprised everyone by letting out a low laugh. Perhaps you're not entirely useless after all, Lyra said, though her tone still carried an edge. But don't let it go to your head, human. You've only passed the first trial. King Varric rose again, his expression inscrutable. Well done, ambassador. You have proven your intellect worthy. But there are 2 trials yet to come. And the second, devised by Princess Rinval, will not rely on wit or clever words. It will test your strength. Rin stood, cracking her knuckles with a grin that bordered on feral. Enjoy your victory while you can, little human, she said, her voice full of menace. Tomorrow you'll face me in the arena. Let's see how well you fare when the stakes are life and limb. As Nathaniel left the arena, escorted by Tralaxian guards, he could hear the whispers of the crowd and feel the weight of their eyes on him. Medea spoke in his earpiece. You made quite the impression back there. But I hope you've been keeping up with your combat training. Nathaniel chuckled, though the sound lacked true mirth. Something tells me tomorrow's trial won't involve puzzles or debates. He gazed out at the alien city again, the glow of its crystalline towers now tinged with a sense of foreboding. Let's hope humanity's strength doesn't disappoint. The arena had transformed overnight. What had once been a space for intellectual sparring was now a battlefield. The crystalline floor was replaced with a grid of metallic plates, some crackling with energy and others emitting bursts of flame. Massive columns jutted upward, their surfaces slick and treacherous. This wasn't just a test of brute strength, it was an obstacle course designed to punish the unprepared. Nathaniel stood in the center of the arena, his Federation-issued combat suit gleaming under the Tralaxian suns. The crowd roared as Princess Rinval entered from the opposite side. She was clad in ceremonial armor, her powerful frame illuminated by the refracted light. In her hand, she carried a weapon that resembled a double-headed glaive, its blades shimmering with a faint, blue energy. Ambassador Kane, Rin called, her voice carrying the weight of challenge. You've proven you have a sharp mind, but intellect won't save you here. The trial of strength is a duel, but not just between us. It's against the arena itself. Let's see if you have what it takes to survive. Nathaniel smirked, though his heart pounded. I'll do my best not to disappoint, Princess. The king's voice boomed. Begin. Immediately, the arena came alive. The metallic plates shifted and moved, forcing Nathaniel to leap to avoid a burst of flame. Rin, however, charged straight at him, her glaive spinning in a deadly arc. Nathaniel barely dodged, rolling to the side as the blade sliced through the air where he'd been standing. Friendly start, he muttered, rising to his feet. Rin grinned. This is me being friendly. Nathaniel quickly realized two things. Rin was fast, unnaturally so, and she wasn't holding back. Her strikes were precise, each one designed to test his reflexes and stamina. He parried her blows with a collapsible baton he'd retrieved from his suit's holster, its energy core humming faintly. The crowd roared louder as Nathaniel managed to deflect a particularly vicious strike, using the momentum to roll away and climb onto one of the arena's columns. From his elevated position, he could see the shifting patterns of the arena's traps. Smart move, Medea's voice whispered in his earpiece. But you can't stay up there forever. She'll just knock you off. As if on cue, Rin hurled her glaive like a spear. Nathaniel barely had time to duck before it embedded itself in the column, the impact shaking the entire structure. Point taken, he muttered. He jumped down, landing on a lower platform just as the column he'd been on was engulfed in flames. Rin retrieved her weapon with a flick of her wrist, its energy blades reigniting with a crackle. Nathaniel knew he couldn't win through sheer force. Rin's strength and combat skills far outclassed his. Instead, he had to use the arena itself to his advantage. He baited her toward a series of shifting plates, timing his movements so that the princess would be forced into the path of a plasma discharge. As Rin closed the gap, Nathaniel darted aside at the last moment. The plasma shot erupted, striking her armor and sending her staggering back. The crowd gaped. Rin snarled, more surprised than hurt. You fight dirty. Just resourcefully, Nathaniel replied, feigning nonchalance. Her grin widened. Good. So do I. Before Nathaniel could react, Rin activated a hidden mechanism in her armor. Jets of energy propelled her forward at blinding speed. She slammed into him, knocking him off his feet and pinning him to the ground. You're clever, she said, her voice low and full of admiration. But clever doesn't win fights. Nathaniel struggled under her weight, his mind racing. He glanced to the side and saw one of the energy traps activating nearby. Summoning all his strength, he twisted his body, using the momentum to roll both of them toward the trap. At the last second, he kicked off, propelling himself free while Rin was forced to roll away to avoid the energy burst. She was back on her feet instantly, but so was Nathaniel, his baton crackling with renewed energy. "Not bad," she admitted, circling him. "Thanks," he replied, breathing hard. "You're not bad yourself." The duel continued, both combatants dodging, striking, and countering in a deadly dance. Nathaniel's endurance was pushed to its limits, but he began to notice something. Rin was smiling. Not a mocking grin like Lyra's, but a genuine smile of enjoyment. "She's testing you," Medea whispered, "and I think she's starting to respect you." With one final burst of effort, Nathaniel managed to disarm Rin, his baton crackling as it hovered near her throat. The crowd fell silent, their collective breath held. But instead of striking, Nathaniel stepped back and deactivated his weapon, tossing it aside. Rin stared at him, then let out a booming laugh. "You had me and you let me go. Why?" "Because winning doesn't always mean defeating your opponent," Nathaniel said. "Sometimes it's about proving a point." The arena erupted into cheers. King Varric rose from his throne, his expression unreadable. "You have passed the second trial, Ambassador. Humanity's strength may yet rival its wit." Rin approached Nathaniel and offered a hand. He took it and she pulled him to his feet. "You're tougher than you look," she said, her grin wide and genuine. "I'll admit it. I'm impressed." Nathaniel smiled, though his legs felt like jelly. "I'll take that as a compliment." As he left the arena, battered but victorious, he couldn't help but wonder what Princess Zellery had in store for him next. The arena had transformed overnight. What had once been a space for intellectual sparring was now a battlefield. The crystalline floor was replaced with a grid of metallic plates, some crackling with energy and others emitting bursts of flame. Massive columns jutted upward, their surfaces slick and treacherous. This wasn't just a test of brute strength, it was an obstacle course designed to punish the unprepared. Nathaniel stood in the center of the arena, his Federation-issued combat suit gleaming under the Trilaxian suns. The crowd roared as Princess Rinval entered from the opposite side. She was clad in ceremonial armor, her powerful frame illuminated by the refracted light. In her hand, she carried a weapon that resembled a double-headed glaive, its blades shimmering with a faint, blue energy. "Ambassador Kane," Rin called, her voice carrying the weight of challenge. "You've proven you have a sharp mind, but intellect won't save you here. The trial of strength is a duel, but not just between us. It's against the arena itself. Let's see if you have what it takes to survive." Nathaniel smirked, though his heart pounded. "I'll do my best not to disappoint, Princess." The king's voice boomed. "Begin." Immediately, the arena came alive. The metallic plates shifted and moved, forcing Nathaniel to leap to avoid a burst of flame. Rin, however, charged straight at him, her glaive spinning in a deadly arc. Nathaniel barely dodged, rolling to the side as the blade sliced through the air where he'd been standing. "Friendly start," he muttered, rising to his feet. Rin grinned. "This is me being friendly." Nathaniel quickly realized two things. Rin was fast, unnaturally so, and she wasn't holding back. Her strikes were precise, each one designed to test his reflexes and stamina. He parried her blows with a collapsible baton he'd retrieved from his suit's holster, its energy core humming faintly. The crowd roared louder as Nathaniel managed to deflect a particularly vicious strike, using the momentum to roll away and climb onto one of the arena's columns. From his elevated position, he could see the shifting patterns of the arena's traps. "Smart move," Medea's voice whispered in his earpiece. "But you can't stay up there forever. She'll just knock you off." As if on cue, Rin hurled her glaive like a spear. Nathaniel barely had time to duck before it embedded itself in the column, the impact shaking the entire structure. "Point taken," he muttered. He jumped down, landing on a lower platform just as the column he'd been on was engulfed in flames. Rin retrieved her weapon with a flick of her wrist, its energy blades reigniting with a crackle. Nathaniel knew he couldn't win through sheer force. Rin's strength and combat skills far outclassed his. Instead, he had to use the arena itself to his advantage. He baited her toward a series of shifting plates, timing his movements so that the princess would be forced into the path of a plasma discharge. As Rin closed the gap, Nathaniel darted aside at the last moment. The plasma shot erupted, striking her armor and sending her staggering back. The crowd gasped. Rin snarled, more surprised than hurt. "You fight dirty." "Just resourcefully," Nathaniel replied, feigning nonchalance. Her grin widened. "Good. So do I." Before Nathaniel could react, Rin activated a hidden mechanism in her armor. Jets of energy propelled her forward at blinding speed. She slammed into him, knocking him off his feet and pinning him to the ground. "You're clever," she said, her voice low and full of admiration. "But clever doesn't win fights." Nathaniel struggled under her weight, his mind racing. He glanced to the side and saw one of the energy traps activating nearby. Summoning all his strength, he twisted his body, using the momentum to roll both of them toward the trap. At the last second, he kicked off, propelling himself free while Rin was forced to roll away to avoid the energy burst. She was back on her feet instantly, but so was Nathaniel, his baton crackling with renewed energy. "Not bad," she admitted, circling him. "Thanks," he replied, breathing hard. "You're not bad yourself." The duel continued, both combatants dodging, striking, and countering in a deadly dance. Nathaniel's endurance was pushed to its limits, but he began to notice something. Rin was smiling. Not a mocking grin like Lyra's, but a genuine smile of enjoyment. "She's testing you," Medea whispered, "and I think she's starting to respect you." With one final burst of effort, Nathaniel managed to disarm Rin, his baton crackling as it hovered near her throat. The crowd fell silent, their collective breath held. But instead of striking, Nathaniel stepped back and deactivated his weapon, tossing it aside. Rin stared at him, then let out a booming laugh. "You had me and you let me go." "Why?" "Because winning doesn't always mean defeating your opponent," Nathaniel said. "Sometimes it's about proving a point." The arena erupted into cheers. King Varric rose from his throne, his expression unreadable. "You have passed the second trial, Ambassador. Humanity's strength may yet rival its wit." Rin approached Nathaniel and offered a hand. He took it and she pulled him to his feet. "You're tougher than you look," she said, her grin wide and genuine. "I'll admit it. I'm impressed." Nathaniel smiled, though his legs felt like jelly. "I'll take that as a compliment." As he left the arena, battered but victorious, he couldn't help but wonder what Princess Zellery had in store for him next. The crystalline arena was gone, replaced by an ethereal garden that seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. The air was heavy with the perfume of alien blossoms, their petals glowing faintly in the dim light. Bioluminescent streams wove through the landscape, and strange creatures, half bird, half insect, flitted between the towering, vine-covered spires. Nathaniel Kane stood at the edge of the garden, his Federation combat suit replaced by simple formal attire. His body still ached from the grueling trial of strength, but his mind was sharp, bracing for whatever test awaited him. The youngest Tralaxian princess, Zellery, emerged from the mist, her silver hair shimmering like moonlight. She carried no weapon, wore no armor, and yet there was something unsettlingly enigmatic about her presence. Her fan of luminescent scales was tucked into her sleeve, and she moved with a quiet grace that belied her alien nature. "Ambassador," she said softly, her voice a melody that seemed to echo in the mind. "The time has come for the final trial, the trial of heart. Strength and wit may win wars, but the Tralaxian Empire seeks allies with courage, empathy, and integrity. This trial will determine whether your heart is worthy." Nathaniel frowned, unsure of what lay ahead. "And how exactly do you plan to measure my heart, Princess?" Zellery tilted her head, her eyes reflecting the light of the glowing streams. "This garden is alive," she explained, her tone reverent. "It is called the Nexus of Souls. Within it lies the essence of empathy, a sentient force that can pierce the deepest layers of your being. You will walk its paths, face its visions, and confront truths about yourself that you may not wish to see. Nathaniel hesitated. And what happens if I fail? The princess gave him a sad smile. Then the garden will decide. And it is not known for its mercy. The stakes were clear. With a steadying breath, Nathaniel stepped into the garden. The first path wound through a thicket of shimmering vines. As Nathaniel walked, the air grew heavy, and the world around him seemed to ripple like water disturbed by a stone. A vision materialized before him, ghostly yet vivid. It was Earth ravaged by war. Cities lay in ruins, and desperate survivors fought over scraps. Amid the chaos, Nathaniel saw himself in a command center, issuing orders with cold precision. His face was hard, his voice devoid of compassion. "Why didn't you help them?" a voice whispered, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. Nathaniel's chest tightened. I did what I thought was right," he said aloud. "I made the choices I had to make to save as many as I could. But you didn't save them all," the voice accused. "You chose efficiency over humanity. You sacrificed the few for the many." The vision faded, leaving Nathaniel shaken. He forced himself to keep moving, his footsteps echoing in the unnerving stillness. The second path opened into a serene meadow. At its center stood a figure from Nathaniel's past, his sister, Clara. She had died years ago in an accident Nathaniel had always blamed himself for. "Why did you let me go?" Clara asked, her voice soft and full of pain. Nathaniel's throat tightened. I couldn't save you," he said, his voice breaking. "I tried, but I wasn't strong enough." "You gave up," Clara said, her eyes piercing. "You accepted my death before the fight was over." Tears welled in Nathaniel's eyes. "I didn't give up. I didn't know what else to do." The figure reached out, brushing her hand against his cheek. "And yet, here you are, still fighting. Maybe it's time you forgave yourself." The vision dissolved, leaving Nathaniel standing alone in the meadow. By the time Nathaniel reached the final path, his emotions were raw, his mind and heart aching from the weight of the visions. The path led to a clearing where the essence of empathy awaited, a swirling, luminous entity that seemed to pulse with life itself. As Nathaniel approached, the essence shimmered, and a final vision unfolded. This time, it wasn't a memory or a haunting figure. It was the future. He saw Earth not destroyed, but thriving. Humanity stood side by side with Tralaxians and other alien species, united in peace and mutual respect. Nathaniel saw himself, older and wiser, standing at the forefront of this alliance, his actions paving the way for a brighter tomorrow. But the vision shifted, showing another possibility. A future where he failed this trial, humanity was rejected, and the fragile alliances shattered. Earth became isolated, vulnerable, and eventually overrun by its enemies. The essence's voice resonated in his mind. "The choices you make now will ripple through eternity. Do you have the courage to face the weight of these decisions? Will you stand for more than yourself?" Nathaniel closed his eyes, feeling the enormity of the question. "I don't know if I'm worthy," he admitted, "but I do know I'll do everything in my power to make sure humanity doesn't stand alone. If I have to carry the weight of those choices, so be it." The essence pulsed brightly, filling the clearing with golden light. Nathaniel emerged from the garden hours later, his expression weary but resolute. Princess Zelari stood waiting, her face unreadable. "You've returned," she said simply. "What did the garden show you?" "Everything I feared," Nathaniel replied, his voice hoarse. "And everything I hope for." The princess smiled faintly. "Then you have passed the trial of heart." The crowd erupted into cheers as King Varric stood, raising his arms to silence them. "Ambassador Nathaniel Kane," he declared, "you have proven humanity's worthiness. The Tralaxian Empire will stand with you." Zelari approached Nathaniel, her silver eyes soft with approval. "You have earned our respect, Ambassador. And perhaps something more." The great hall of Gralter Prime was alive with energy. The massive crystalline walls reflected the light of 1,000 suns, casting shimmering patterns across the faces of the Tralaxian nobility. The air buzzed with excitement, as the long-awaited moment was finally here. the culmination of Nathaniel Kane's trials. The king would make his decision. Nathaniel stood before King Varric, flanked by the three princesses, Lyra, Rin, and Zelari, each one a living testament to the power and beauty of the Tralaxian race. Their expressions were unreadable, though their eyes occasionally flicked toward him with a mix of curiosity and respect. King Varric, a towering figure of crystalline skin and regal bearing, slowly rose from his throne. His face was an inscrutable mask, but his presence commanded the room. Silence descended, the tension palpable. The choice he would make today would determine the future of not only humanity, but the fate of all Tralaxian intergalactic relations. "You have come to us as an emissary of Earth," Varric began, his voice deep and resonant, seeking the approval of the Tralaxian Empire. "In your trials you have demonstrated intellect, strength, and heart. But it is not enough to merely pass these trials. You must prove that humanity is worthy of becoming more than just an ally. You must prove that you are worthy to stand beside us as equals." Nathaniel held his ground, though his mind raced. This wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. This was personal. He had faced the tests of mind, body, and spirit, but now he had to convince the most powerful being in the Tralaxian Empire that humanity was more than the sum of its flaws. King Varric's gaze shifted to his daughters. Princess Lyra, the eldest, and the one most attuned to strategy and intellect. "What is your opinion of Ambassador Kane?" Lyra stepped forward, her golden eyes glinting with a mixture of admiration and something more, perhaps a hint of curiosity that had not been there at the beginning. "He has proven his intellect, my father," Lyra began, her voice steady. "His ability to solve the Triskelion conundrum was unexpected. Few have been able to match his strategic thinking. Yet, his true strength lies not just in his mind, but in his willingness to adapt. He is not bound by arrogance or rigid principles, but rather by an unwavering desire to survive and protect. That, I believe, is what makes him dangerous in the best way." Nathaniel met her gaze, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. He knew that Lyra had once seen him as little more than a mere human, weak, insignificant. But now she had acknowledged the value in his adaptability. King Varric nodded slowly. "A worthy assessment, princess." He then turned to Rin, the second princess, whose ferocity in the arena had left an indelible impression. She was a force of nature, both physically and mentally. "Princess Rin, the warrior of our bloodline, what do you think of this human who has faced you in battle?" Rin grinned, the same wild energy she had exhibited in their previous encounters dancing in her eyes. "He's stubborn, my father," Rin said, her voice laced with respect. "And in battle, stubbornness is often the key to survival. He took the hits, gave them right back, and never once backed down. I've never met a human like him. His strength isn't just in his fists, but in his will to keep fighting when every part of him screams to stop. He may not be the most powerful, but he knows how to make every moment count. For that, I admire him." Nathaniel bowed his head slightly in gratitude. "I'm honored by your words, princess." King Varric acknowledged her words with a thoughtful nod, before turning to Zelari, the youngest and most mysterious of the three sisters. "And you, Princess Zelari, who devised the final trial. What is your judgment?" Zelari's silvery eyes sparkled with a depth of emotion rarely seen in her people. Her soft voice resonated with an unusual warmth as she spoke. "I've seen many beings in my time, my father," Zelari began, her gaze steady on Nathaniel. "But none like him. The nexus of souls did not show me the man I thought I would see. The man I thought I would see would have crumbled under the weight of his past, under the weight of the choices he's made." But Nathaniel Kane stood firm. He confronted his own regrets, not with shame, but with acceptance. He has the heart to learn, to grow, to embrace the future, even with the burden of his past. Nathaniel swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling deeply in his chest. It had been a long, painful journey, but hearing these words, he realized just how far he had come. Zelari turned her gaze to the king. "I believe this human is capable of not only standing with us but growing beside us. Together, we could create something more than alliances. We could create a future. For a long moment, King Varric said nothing. The room was heavy with anticipation. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady and final. The princesses have spoken, and their words carry great weight. You, Ambassador Nathaniel Kane, have shown intellect, strength, and heart in ways that few can comprehend. You have earned our respect. The king rose from his throne, stepping forward with an air of finality. And yet, the choice I make is not based merely on the trials you have endured. It is based on a singular question. Can humanity be trusted? Can you, Ambassador, and your people, be trusted to stand with the Tralaxian Empire not just in times of peace, but in the darkest of days? Nathaniel stood tall, his heart pounding in his chest. I can only speak for myself, Your Majesty, but I will do everything in my power to prove that humanity can be trusted. We may not be perfect, but we are a species that strives to learn, to grow, and to build something greater than ourselves. If you allow us to stand with you, I promise we will be worthy. The king's eyes softened for the briefest of moments, and a low rumble of approval echoed from deep within his chest. You have earned your place, Ambassador Nathaniel Kane. A murmur spread through the hall, but the king raised his hand, silencing the crowd. Let it be known, then, that humanity has been accepted into the Tralaxian Empire. You will not stand as a mere ally, but as a partner. And should your people continue to prove their worth, you shall have a voice in our council, and a place among us in the stars. The hall erupted into applause, and Nathaniel felt a wave of relief wash over him. The weight of the trials, of the pressure to succeed, had all been worth it. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. The celebratory atmosphere of Gralter Prime's Grand Hall was a far cry from the tense, arduous trials Nathaniel had endured. The air hummed with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. The Tralaxian nobility and dignitaries gathered in clusters, discussing the unprecedented alliance with Earth. For the first time in history, a human had earned the respect of the Tralaxian Empire, not as a subject but as a partner. Yet as the revelry surged around him, Nathaniel stood at the balcony of the palace, his gaze drifting out into the endless void of space. The stars twinkled brightly, but the vastness of the universe felt more daunting than ever. His mind kept returning to the weight of the decision he had made. This wasn't just an alliance between two species. It was a bond that would shape the future of both. A soft voice pulled him from his thoughts. You seem distant, Ambassador. Nathaniel turned to find Princess Lyra standing beside him. Her golden eyes glinted with a sharpness that matched the way she carried herself. The evening's festivities had done little to dull her intensity. Just thinking about what's ahead, Nathaniel admitted, offering her a half-smile. There's a lot at stake now. Lyra regarded him quietly for a moment, her gaze intense. You've done well, Nathaniel. But the trials were just the beginning. Now you face the true challenge. And that is, Lyra's lips curled into a small smile. Building the future. Earning the trust of the Tralaxian people will be a long journey. You won't always have the benefit of our trials to guide you. You'll have to navigate the politics, the cultures, and the history of an empire that spans millennia. Nathaniel nodded. He had known this moment would come, the moment where the euphoria of success faded, and the real work began. I'm ready for it, he said. I'm not just here for Earth. I'm here to prove humanity can be part of something greater than itself. Lyra studied him for a long moment before speaking again. I believe you, Ambassador. But remember, there are those who won't be as eager to accept you. There will be factions, both within Tralaxian society and among your own people, who will question this alliance. Trust will need to be earned on both sides. Her words hung in the air between them. Nathaniel could feel the weight of her caution. While the Tralaxian Empire had officially accepted humanity, he knew that acceptance didn't erase centuries of history. There were countless challenges ahead, political, ideological, and personal. I'm used to challenges, Nathaniel replied, turning back toward the stars. I've fought for Earth's survival before. This is no different. But now, I'm not fighting alone. Lyra's eyes softened, a rare glimpse of vulnerability breaking through her composed demeanor. "No, you're not," she said quietly. "But neither are we." Later that evening, as the celebrations continued inside, Nathaniel found himself in the company of Princess Zelari. She had not been as vocal in the past, preferring to observe rather than engage. But tonight, her demeanor was different, more open, almost welcoming. "You've been quiet, Princess," Nathaniel remarked as they stood near a quiet corner of the palace. The others were still lost in conversation, the sounds of their laughter and music reaching them in muffled waves. Zelari gave him a small smile, her silvery eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "I've been thinking." "About what?" Nathaniel asked, intrigued. "About what happens next. We have a partnership now, but partnerships are fragile things. They require more than just shared interests. They require mutual understanding, shared experiences." She paused, her gaze flickering toward the bustling crowd. "There is still much we do not know about each other." Nathaniel studied her carefully. The Tralaxian princess was unlike her sisters. Where Lyra had been sharp and strategic, and Rin had been bold and brash, Zelari seemed to possess a deeper, more introspective quality. It was no surprise, then, that she was the one to address the next stage of their relationship. "I know we're not exactly in a position to know each other fully yet," Nathaniel said slowly. "But we're learning, right?" Zelari nodded, her lips curving into a thoughtful expression. "Yes, but learning doesn't always equate to understanding. There are many layers to a species, Ambassador. To truly become allies, we must bridge the gap between our cultures. And that will take time." Nathaniel frowned. "What exactly are you asking for?" Zelari stepped closer, her presence calm and assured. "I'm asking you to consider more than just the surface level of this alliance. You have seen our strength, our intellect, our hearts. But we need to see the same from you. What does humanity truly stand for? What is it that drives your species beyond survival? It is not enough to say you want peace. We must understand why." Nathaniel stood still, processing her words. She was right, of course. The Tralaxian Empire had been built over centuries, guided by principles and values far older than humanity's own history. In comparison, Earth's fight for survival had been one of struggle and conflict. But perhaps that struggle was what had shaped humanity's spirit. Its resilience, its adaptability, its unyielding desire to build something better despite the odds. "You're asking me to show you the heart of humanity," Nathaniel said, his voice quiet but firm. "I can do that, but it will take time." Zelari smiled, and for the first time, Nathaniel saw a flicker of something deeper in her eyes. Respect, perhaps, or the beginning of trust. "That's all I ask, Ambassador. Time and understanding." The evening wound to a close, and the grand hall began to empty as guests filed out, their voices fading into the distance. Nathaniel remained at the balcony, watching the stars as they twinkled in the vastness of space. For the first time in a long while, he felt the weight of the future pressing down on him, not as an individual but as a representative of a species on the brink of something greater. Earth had earned its place in the galaxy, but now the real work began. And as Nathaniel turned back toward the palace, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity's path forward would not be an easy one. There would be struggles, there would be challenges, but there would also be a chance to prove that humanity could stand side by side with the greatest civilizations the universe had to offer. The sun rose slowly over Gralter Prime, its light streaking across the sky in a cascade of golden hues, casting long shadows across the magnificent palace. The day after the grand celebration was a quieter affair, but the weight of the moment was not lost on anyone. Earth had earned its place in the cosmos, and Nathaniel Kane stood at the crossroads of history, an ambassador for humanity, a symbol of the alliance between two worlds. Inside the palace, a great meeting was taking place. King Varric had summoned the most influential leaders of the Tralaxian Empire, along with representatives from Earth. Nathaniel stood at the head of the table, flanked by Princess Lyra, Princess Rin, and Princess Zelari. His Federation uniform had been replaced by a ceremonial tunic, the fabric a deep blue embroidered with silver. Despite his personal fatigue from the trials, his posture was resolute. King Varric, seated at the center, surveyed the room with a sense of quiet authority. His piercing gaze moved over the assembly, and Nathaniel could feel the weight of his scrutiny. The moment had arrived. Ambassador Kane, the king began, his voice echoing through the chamber. Today we begin the next chapter in our histories. The Tralaxian Empire has accepted your people as partners, and in doing so, we set the stage for a new era of cooperation between our species. But as we all know, an alliance is not just about treaties and words. It is about trust, mutual respect, and shared commitment. Nathaniel nodded, his voice steady as he addressed the room. King Varric, thank you. Humanity is honored by the trust you've placed in us. But we understand that trust is earned. We have much to prove, not just to the Tralaxian Empire, but to the galaxy itself. We are ready to work beside you, learn from you, and contribute to the shared future we will build together. The Tralaxian Council members exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting the skepticism that always accompanied the signing of any new alliance. As a young species, humanity was still viewed with a measure of doubt. Earth had proven resilient, but many still questioned whether they could truly stand on equal footing with ancient civilizations like the Tralaxians. Princess Lyra spoke next, her voice commanding and confident. It is one thing to declare an alliance, she said, but the path ahead is fraught with challenges. We must be clear about our intentions and ensure that our cooperation is more than just symbolic. Earth must be prepared to integrate into the galactic stage in a meaningful way. Nathaniel's heart raced, but he met Lyra's gaze with unwavering resolve. We understand, Princess. Humanity is not just interested in survival, we are eager to expand, to learn, and to contribute. We are not afraid of change, nor of the challenges that await us. And we are ready to prove that we can be trusted. Rin, ever the warrior, leaned forward, her fiery eyes narrowing. But can you be trusted when the stakes are high? When things get difficult? The Tralaxian Empire has enemies, Ambassador. Enemies that would rather see us fall than rise. You must understand that this alliance is not just about what we gain, but what we risk. Nathaniel's mind flashed back to the dangers Earth had faced. The alien invasions, the internal conflicts, the survival of the human race against impossible odds. I understand that better than anyone, Princess Rin, he said, his voice low but firm. Humanity has always faced impossible odds. We have fought against extinction, against tyranny, against every force that would have destroyed us. And every time we've come out stronger. Rin studied him for a moment, her gaze softening just slightly. I believe you, Ambassador. But the real question is whether your people are prepared to face the forces that would test this alliance. Forces that will come for both of us. Zelari, who had been silent for most of the meeting, now spoke up. Her voice was soft but carried an undeniable authority. We all face dangers, whether they are internal or external. But the greatest danger is not what others do to us. It is what we allow ourselves to become when we face those threats. Humanity has shown it can adapt, but the true test will be whether it can resist the temptation to act out of fear, greed, or pride. Nathaniel felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. I can promise you this, Princess Zelari. Humanity will not let fear rule our decisions. We will stand with you not as subjects, but as true partners. We will share our resources, our knowledge, and our strength. We will build a future, not just for ourselves, but for all who seek peace. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Then King Varric spoke, his voice calm but filled with finality. It is clear that you understand the gravity of this alliance, Ambassador. We will not rush into this partnership, but we will not hesitate to take the next steps. The Tralaxian Empire will begin sharing our knowledge with Earth. Our fleet will aid in the protection of your homeworld, and our resources will be made available for the mutual benefit of both our peoples. Nathaniel felt a surge of hope rise within him. And in return, the United Earth Federation will offer our technological expertise, our resources, and our military support. We will share our knowledge of the stars, our research into sustainable energy, and our medical advancements. Together, We will stand united against any threat. The council members nodded, and one by one, they began to murmur in agreement. The air in the room seemed to shift, as though the tension that had defined the earlier discussions had finally broken. This was not just a signing of papers. This was the birth of a new era. Lyra's expression softened as she looked at Nathaniel. "There is much work to do," she said. "But perhaps, Ambassador, this is the beginning of something truly remarkable." Nathaniel nodded, his gaze sweeping over the room. "It is, Princess. Together we will make it so." The meeting concluded, and as the Tralaxian representatives filed out, Nathaniel found himself standing in the center of the room, a new sense of purpose surging through him. This was not the end of the journey. It was only the beginning. The alliance between Earth and the Tralaxian Empire was more than a diplomatic success. It was a shared commitment to a future that neither side could build alone. Outside the palace, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the landscape of Gralter Prime. Nathaniel stood at the edge of the balcony, looking out over the alien city, the promise of the future glimmering before him. He wasn't just an ambassador anymore. He was a bridge between two worlds, and he would be there to help both walk across it. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had found its place among the stars. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stellar HFY content. Ring that bell to stay updated, and we'll see you next time.